The all-new Mercedes-AMG GT today in Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. With Thomas and a very sporty review, of course, focused on performance and of course on design, because I think this one is one of the new design icons here with the sporty cars. Definitely already a future classic in my opinion. I'm going to explain to you why I think so and all other things about exterior, interior and the driving experience, of course. So let's enjoy this review together here, and now I already got the new sound for you. Two things I love. First of all, lens flares, and the second, brilliant blue metallic. A really beautiful color for this car. If you pick the Mercedes-AMG GT, go for this one. The front here, this diamond structure grille, it's actually just some plastic, but you know, it looks good from distance. This is quite of normal. Well, you got the AMG logo here, but what is special here with the GT is that it's very sharp here in the front, and then you get this symmetric split, and that makes the car even more aggressive from the front. And the same accounts here for the headlights, drawn back a little bit more, and really huge air intakes here at the lower part. This is very special. And then you already see these power dome structures, which look as beautiful from the outside as when you're sitting inside the cockpit and looking to the front. Special design elements, we see it here on the top of the hood, but you know, from the technical effect we can later on see what is behind that when we open the hood. I'll soon show you. What we can definitely always see from here is this another design aspect here on the side part. Very beautiful. Also says always the V8 B-turbo, but again, this is just fake here, you know, it's just a grid, but it has no real function. We have discussed this again with the BMW review, for example, and there actually it had a function because it was streaming the air from the wheel arch. Not sure if this is really big function, but the general purpose of this, especially for Mercedes, is that the 300 SL had this and it had drum brakes. There it was really a vent for the drum brakes. Here for the disc brakes you don't need it. And it also got no connection to the wheel arch here whatsoever. So just a nice design piece. Talking about disc brakes, of course they are really huge here with AMG brake calipers and also a special AMG alloys. Two color scheme here, and also the scheme Please Scratch Me. 19-inch, and you see there's not much space left. You really have to pay attention to that. However, the tire is a little bit protecting it. Now this, well, I think it would have been even more beautiful if they would be kind of silver or gray. I don't like black alloys, but what about you? Want to see that in the comments here. If you would go for these black ones, I think especially to the blue, contrasting silver ones would have fitted even better. Let's talk about this incredible side profile, my absolute favorite, and I think one of those cars that are, well, maybe one of the most beautiful ever built, and it also has kind of in the history of the 300 SL where we had this very long hood and then this roundly shaped rear. Same with the Jaguar E-Type and also the Jaguar F-Type then later on, especially coupe version. I think this is just pure beautiness. I mean, just look at it. It doesn't need so many words, and because they have made the hood that long and then placed the engine a little bit behind, then they say it's the front middle engine concept. The weight balance therefore also very well, almost 50-50, 1,600 kilograms just in weight. So this offers you a lot of performance. Length of the car 4 meters 54. The Porsche 911, by the way, is 5 centimeters shorter. However, the kind of predecessor, the Mercedes SLS, was 10 centimeters longer. So it's not a real predecessor because the SLS was really a super sports car, even more expensive. This one here is about 115,000 euros in Germany with the GT version. The GTS version, you only get the GTS version in the US. The GTS version is about 130,000 euros, but this very vehicle with all the extra equipment it does include already is already about 130,000 euros. So we got kind of GTS equipment here already in here, although we don't have the GTS engine. More about the engine now quite soon, but we'll finish the review here from the exterior with the rear. So tell me also in the comments what you think about this rear, and does it remind you of a Porsche, because there have been actual discussions about it. I think here it is good that they chose a way that they don't follow this kind of let's say Asian design. You know, it's no racism at all, because there's basically this kind of European and a kind of Asian design. European design is kind of rather dynamic with a lot of edges. People say it's also deriving just from the letters breathed right. And the Asian design often has some more round structures. Also, the cars are a little bit stronger in the front and then slimmer in the rear. And you know, the European style is often the other way around. So very interesting topic itself. But here I think they followed this kind of classic European design with sharp structures in here and also long taillights. I think it has become really beautiful, but what do you think about that one? Really looking forward to your comments then. Mercedes itself, by the way, says it's kind of a Coke bottle design, especially as we've seen in the side profile. I'm not sure if you should refer to other brands in this case, but that's the way they call it. And you know, they mean this kind of classic shape structure where you have this flowing lines, it gets bigger here, and then I'm not sure. To me, it's not a Coke bottle, but it's still a very beautiful car. And by the way, just to give you some figures about the 911, if you, for example, compare the 911 GTS to the AMG GT, well, you can slightly compare it, because then this one here with 462 horsepower has a little bit more horsepower, but the Porsche 911 GTS cost about 25,000 euros more. And then if you compare the GTS version here to the Porsche 911 Turbo S, there the Turbo S has a little bit more horsepower, but again over 30,000 euros more. So actually this car is relatively cheap in this segment, which is kind of a surprise in this case. Let's check out this V8 B-Turbo, 4 liters of capacity, in this case the GT version, as I said, 462 horsepower. The GTS version has 510 horsepower. Does it really matter? Honestly, no. The acceleration figure, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 60 miles an hour, is 4 seconds. With the GTS, we have 3.8 seconds, so no real difference. You see here this one man, one engine concept by AMG. It says the name of the engine builder here. That's the concept with AMG. So it's not that a lot of engines are then, you know, shared in the process. So one man is there and puts together all the parts of this one engine, and then is also kind of responsible that this engine is really working. It's a very nice brand concept and very marketing wise also quite of clever. And then you can put the name on there and you know you got something special in this case. And well, I said relatively cheap in this segment, but of course, I mean, if you have a car over 100,000 euros, who could ever say is that this is something cheap? And now we'll check out the interior. So the key, by the way, to get inside, we got the AMG logo right here, but other than that, it's a standard Mercedes key. Actually, well, that could have been a special one for that one, don't you think so? Let's get inside. very special interior. You see it immediately, very sporty, and then this chrome look at the middle console. Different buttons. I'll soon explain to you which buttons have which effect. And then I love that they included the GTS steering wheel in this equipment here. This is optional or series with the GTS then, with the microfiber surface. So great grip and really feels good no matter if you drive sporty or not. Or everywhere these very round cockpit structures, and every gap is just perfectly executed. And very special the seat surface here, because my favorite combination with microfiber, in this case from the manufacturer of Dinamica, in the middle, and faux leather at the outside. Thanks for faux leather, by the way, for the pronunciation. This is called Artico, so Mercedes calls it Artico when they use the fake leather, and it's really just very transparent. So they really say in the price list that they do it that way, and this is serial equipment with the AMG GT. Best way ever, I can just stress this. You don't need real leather, you just sweat it. And these seats are really perfect on the surface, but you can already see it here. A lot of side support everywhere, real racing seats. But I can also tell you so far, they are not that comfortable. Although you can have a lot of adjustment functions, just very short electronic ones. For example, for the lumbar support, this is possible here, for example. Then you can, for example, put the back part. It's also not possible with every super sport seat, and you can also move them up, down, and in the front, and also just put the front higher. So you're actually quite flexible with it one. By the way, steering wheel, of course, with the flatted end. That's the best part of it. The inside of the doors, also this great microfiber style, also very soft. It feels good and it looks good, and you see the processing, everything is really perfect. But of course, we do expect that from Mercedes. And you see that some gaps are also hidden in this sensual purity look. We've explained that design earlier. And just really amazing how round these structures are. Really massive middle console then. By the way, this is the glove box. You can hide some camera equipment in there as well. And yeah, I think one of the best interiors we've seen lately, definitely. However, you have to clean this one here quite often because it does collect some fingerprints. This one here, by the way, this new multimedia soft pad here, there's the surface here is specially produced, just the very covering, that it doesn't catch so much scratches. Also an interesting story, but however, I'm not too convinced of that one, because I would just use like this one for, you know, okay, and doing all the navigation stuff. I really don't need that stuff. You can write there, for example, A and B and numbers, but I don't really need it. And then soon I also talk about the buttons in detail. Let me just show you the overlook here for you. This is here 12-volt power supply. You can put the key also in here when the keyless start is not working, and USB slots here, 2 and 1 SD slot here. This is just some storage space here, and well, that's then kind of it. At the inside of the doors, there's a shorts at both sides, but then, you know, it's a sports car, not a really a storage car. One beverage holder is here, well, actually 2 spots, and another 12-volt power supply, or for the Autogefühl garage beeper, that's also possible. And then you can see it right here. Again, this we know that from the S-Class Coupe we've shown you in there. It's also a great solution to do it like this. And now we can also turn on the ignition. We start the ignition right here and also start the engine there. And by the way, this famous effect that both of the indicators, they turn up to the maximum if you put on the ignition. There it is. And well, a lot of people do really like that. Then the instruments, left the speed, right the RPMs, and in the middle you get the information of the consumption, for example. And in this case, well, 70 liters because we did some fun stuff. Maybe 15 liters is really effectively, but you know, from the stated like 10 or 11 liters, that's far away. But you know, consumption is not really the main topic of this car. Then let's continue to the buttons here. Above that, this is the control of the different driving modes. I'll tell you more about it when driving, like individual, comfort, sport and sport plus. This one here is to deactivate the the ESC or DSC, however you want to call it, the stability control. 3 modes possible actually. I'll also soon explain you more about it when we drive the car. Suspension settings, stiff or not that stiff. This one here you can even set more stuff manually, but hardly anyone will use it, I think. Volume control for the music, start stop, on and off, and extra sound with the exhaust. And this one is automatically activated when you put it to Sport Plus, by the way. This one here is the automatic driving lever, park, rear, neutral and drive. That's kind of the overview here. Temperature control is right here now, again in the details. And I think a very beautiful solution, put it down to be colder and up to be a little bit warmer. Same accounts here. And all the stuff you can see up here. It's not a touchscreen. It looks a little bit deplaced for my opinion. I'm not sure, not the best solution there, but maybe because of the size, I'm not sure. Not the most beautiful solution in my opinion. Then just to show you GPS, we know there's kind of stuff from Mercedes already. It's not really the new system, but I think it works quite well. Also the reaction times are quite fast. That is actually really okay. And if we go to the menu, I can also show the rest, because Mercedes drivers will know it, that you can move around in the menu that way. Yeah, so you move this one here, right and left, and then you can move to the menu, also go to telephone or the vehicle, and also activate with the menu button up here. You can also go to the climate menu. You should actually be possible. Why isn't it working? Maybe go like back there. Okay, that's strange. Well, and that's kind of also my conclusion to this system. You have to get used to it. I think it's not the easiest one. I've seen better ones that are more intuitive, because, for example, now, why can't I go to the climate menu right now? I'm not sure. Maybe put on the ignition one higher. No, there it is. Now I can. So that's the climate menu. So if you want to do it via the screen, you can also set the temperature or where the air is coming from right here. But still, again, a little bit complicated. By the way, up there's a button for the rear wing. It pops out automatically when you're going very fast, however, but you can also do it manually. Yeah, I know you want to have a short sound preview. Yeah, you've seen some driving shots already, but just to give you one performance hint already right here, when I turn on the engine, very nice already. And then there are certain steps where you can actually activate the launch control. It's a little bit complicated here with Mercedes. First of all, you go to the Sport Plus mode. You hear the sound is already different there, very nice. I think one of the best sounds design, along with the Jaguar F-Type, I think, and well, the Corvette sound was, for example, also very nice. So just to name a few. Then there are the 2 levels, sport handling mode with the ESC, and if I hold the ESC button longer, later on we have a very extensive demonstration of that one, then the ESC is off. Now we close the door. Then we have to remove the electronic parking brake, it's on the left side, but it also removes automatically when you just start driving. You have to pull it. And we have to go into D in the driving mode, and then another step is possible. With Porsche, for example, you just have to hammer the brakes with the left foot and then right foot the throttle and go all the way. Here you have to hold both pedals just shortly and then push the pedal up. And now I can preload until 3,500 RPM instead of just 1,000, and the car always starting to move in the front a little bit here. I can really preload the car, and that is really the thing here. But you see, it only works once. It was now deactivated again, and then I have to go all the way again. So a little bit complicated here. But when you have done all these kind of steps, this is happening. We open the trunk with the key. There's no other button available from the outside. And then, well, you can store something in here, although it's a pretty high-class sports car. You see a suitcase is fitting there, another one above that No. The one next to it, that would actually work. On the left side we have a practical net, not on the right side though. Well, how much you can load there? There's another security barrier here, quite strong when you put some low stuff here, but you see there's not too much space in the height. And well, I would rather say make it a convertible and then put the trunk even a little bit farther back. And this one is another security measure if you want to secure it, because you know the glass is here then, and then nothing can fly across your face when you may be braking a little bit too hard with this sports car. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you've all been waiting for, to drive this car with me. And some of you told me in the comments lately, when we do these reviews, it's the closest you can get to drive the car yourself, and I really appreciate the comment, and we'll keep on doing exactly right that now. So actually we have two driving modes, or three driving modes, which are very interesting. We got comfort here, and then you hear it's quite of silent. Yeah, we got some kids waving to us because they like the car, that's very funny. And also the suspension is very comfortable then, hey there. Then we got the sport mode, a little bit stiffer suspension than already, and also from the engine, direct throttle input. And then we got the Sport Plus mode, and we'll focus on this one here because this is about the performance here in this review as well. And with the Sport Plus mode, we have the valve in the exhaust open then. It's also available, as I've shown you earlier, with a separate button that gives us more boost from the sound then, very interesting. And all of the other settings, also for the throttle input and the suspension, are also set on the sporty mode. And this gives us now the maximum fun here for the performance. So we're waiting for the green traffic light. Maybe I can move it to green myself. Let's see, maybe with neutral. Maybe this says, I don't know. Now we can go. Oh, nice, very nice. Did you also hear the shifting down? That was also very nice. Just one acceleration, but you know, inside the city from traffic light to traffic light. Therefore, we are also going to the countryside now, that we can have a better long run. And now the famous tunnel is coming. Also motorcyclists behind us, so I have to watch out. So let's see what the tunnel can offer us in sound. What do you think, guys? The motorcyclist behind us was answering us. It's very funny. So that's, maybe we can ask him to race us, but that would be maybe too dangerous. But very exciting it would be. With, I think, a Kawasaki Ninja, I think, behind us. Yeah, I think so. I used to ride motorcycles myself, by the way. But rather off-road actually, on-road and off-road, both actually, so motocross and also on the road bike with Supermoto. So I also got some experience there. So now we're getting close to our famous test track for us, and then we can also check out the performance, because the steering actually is very special with this car. Nothing like I've seen before, because that is one reason. Here the electronic support is also when you measuring sideways. Usually it's just like the speed, but here also the side speed is measured, and then the electronic steering wheel is adjusted according to this. That's also very interesting. So let's go. First 180 corner left. Wow. What the hell? Do you hear that sound? The adrenaline rush is already starting to kick in now. see the long front hood in front of me. That's also very amazing. Hard on brakes. The steering wheel is not feeling very naturally, I must say. It's more like the artificial steering, so also kind of light. You don't have this very strong Porsche steering, for example. But the thing is, it really pulls you in the corner. It's not only that you push the car. As soon as you steer a little bit further, you feel that the whole car is being like pulled on a rope. It's a really strange feeling. I'm not sure yet if it's good or bad in this case, but I can tell you one thing, it is amazing, really, really amazing, this handling. Also when I'm doing right, left now, German lesson for today, we say that a car fährt wie auf Schienen. That is like, it drives like it is on rails, and that it means that it's kind of sticking so much to the road that it's so sporty and so well to control. Now, very tight corner. Wow. Let's push it one more time. Uphill now, corner right. Wow. Okay. There the ESP set in. So first time now with controlled ESP. And then there are actually two kinds of modes. First of all, I can press it once, and then I go to the sport handling mode. And we can also feel the differences, because the sport handling mode will allow me to push the limits a little bit further. And that will be very interesting, how the differences are actually in this case. So we just go this very same corner, now just downhill first, and then we go uphill again to really compare it. And that's also like a hint for you if you own a new car and have this kind of different ESP modes. Do it really step by step and learn from the car how it's behaving, so you don't over-accelerate or exaggerate the whole stuff then. So let's see, when I go to the corner now and push the throttle again, what the ESP is saying. Yeah, a little bit more slippery than already in the rear. But actually, the car is not that aggressive in the corner as I would have expected it to be. That's quite okay. Actually, for example, you know, you don't need to be a super high-performance racer to have this car. And I mean, hardly any high-performance racer will buy this car, because there's mostly people that also just want to enjoy this and have the budget to buy the cars. So we turn around. By the way, it's there. The steering wheel takes quite a long way that you really turn the car around, but you know, it's not too long, the car. Now with the ESP on, or ESC on sport mode, let's see how it behaves. Going the same right corner now. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I'm not sure how much you can see from it actually, but of course when you're sitting inside the car and feel the G-forces, you feel it of course more. And now our rear end slipped out, I would say like this kind of bit off on the road, and that was really fun to drive. And so I think I can generally recommend this ESC Sport mode, because then you can still be in control of the car, but let it slip around just a little bit. And now we can deactivate it completely. I would not recommend that to you. I'm just trying out now like how big the difference is now here when we're in the same conditions kind of, because that will be very interesting then. But I can usually not recommend to you. Maybe just do this on a racetrack, or if you have really a lot of space left then to do something like that. But usually you shouldn't do that, and especially not in normal traffic, because that actually makes no sense then. So I think the ESC Sport mode will be the right mode if you want to have a little bit more fun, that the car doesn't really get such the whole control of you. So, you know, Autogefühl is always about safety first. Therefore, we are also not the primary channel to show you this acceleration videos all the time, because you always need a safe spot for that, and even then it's kind of dangerous. But here we have kind of controlled conditions, and I can stop the car at any seconds. We also don't go high maximum speeds, just for safety reasons, of course. Now the ESC completely off. Let's see what is the difference there in this case. I expect we just have a little bit more spin then. Yeah. And maybe you've seen the steering wheel. Now we got into some kind of regions where actually, how can I explain it? At first the car felt a little bit smoother. So with the ESC Sport, I felt the car was held behind a little bit at first. But then it broke out, and then it was a little bit more massive. Now with the ESC completely off, if you have really enough driving skills, it is actually even better to do that if you have the driving skills and the experience, because the car slides out a little bit smoother, but then it is also your task to catch the car. And you may be seen it, I just had to react, like not to overreact, but just a small reaction in the other direction, and then the car was perfectly fine. But you know, first try it with the ESC Sport, then you can still feel confident. You know the car is doing the stuff for you. Here, if I don't react, the slip continues and we turn around in the circle, which actually would be also kind of fun. But of course, it would be better if we have more space to do so then. Achso, warte mal, lass mal kurz mal laufen. Machen kurz einen Schnitt hier. So, and then also some comments to the general driving, because not everyone will do this racing stuff driving all the time. If we go to the comfort mode now, I thought about, is it really as comfortable as a Porsche 911? Is it more comfortable because it's a Mercedes? Well, I can say it is less comfortable or / more racing stylish. The 911 is, I think, the better suitable everyday car. I was surprised by that, because the suspension, even here in the comfort mode, is kind of very stiff, I must say. It's really a pure race car, definitely. And also the seats, I mean, it's great. The surface choice and also the sporty equipment we got here, also good side support. But it's not really a primary car, just a secondary car, because there for everyday riding, it would be, to me, too uncomfortable. So I would rather go for an SL than call me grandfather or something like that, but that's just how I see things in here. So really a car, if you want this very high performance approach here, it doesn't really matter if you have the GT or GTS. You know, in US also the only the GTS available. Can have a lot of fun here just when everyday driving. Of course, always just going left and right, feel the G-forces. But again, nothing for really long road trips, because then for a lot of people, your back will start to hurt. Generally, you don't have too little space here. Also, the headroom is quite okay while driving. That's all perfectly fine. But again, it's not a long road trip car, definitely not. And the 911 is a little bit better in the comfort then, so that's to answer your question then and there. And one last thing I want to say when driving, I love microfiber steering wheels, be it from a brand of Alcantara or Dynamica, I don't care. In this case, just great not to have real leather here at the steering wheel. This is the real racing steering wheel, more grip, feels softer here. And if everyone says, oh, it's not that durable, whatever. I mean, if you buy a car for 130,000 euros, you can afford to get a new microfiber from in 2 or 3 years for 100 euros or whatever. That shouldn't be actually a problem. So thank you very much. I enjoyed really this driving part, and now let's come to our final conclusion. Now to the conclusion of this review about the Mercedes-AMG GT. Does it matter if you have the GT or GTS? No, doesn't really make a difference, even if in the US just the GTS. Just a small horsepower difference, and just from a little bit of the equipment, doesn't really matter so much. But you should always go for the Alcantara steering wheel, and still keep with the C-wheel seats here with the Alcantara or Dynamica, because it's the manufacturer in this case, on the inside, and then the faux leather on the outside called Artico. Really great combination. They should just keep continuing that. Don't pick the optional leather seats, it's nonsense. The design, I mean, come on, this is just great. Please take it in this color just for my pleasure here. One of the best exteriors I've seen so far, along with the Jaguar F-Type Coupe, one of the most beautiful cars on the market right now, in my opinion, definitely. That was one of the very rare cars where it was delivered to Autogefühl and I said, holy shit. I don't really often say that, because you know, you also get used to a lot of powerful cars. but this one very special in here. And it has also had more emotional touch to me than, for example, a Porsche 911. If you compare these two ones, by the way, the 911 I think is a little bit more comfortable. I was surprised by that. This one here has more the sporty touch. Also from the performance, I think the performance and the handling is better than the 911. However, then the Cayman has the better handling and performance than this one. So I would rate it exactly that way. It's also very interesting. The interior was also very great, also from the styling and all how everything was processed. That was really cool, so I was really amazed by that. However, not too comfortable to ride if you go on a longer trip, so I wouldn't take it as a primary car. I would do it actually with the Mercedes SL, comfortable enough, definitely, but I wouldn't do it with that one because I would, you know, also need some long-term runs and then it wouldn't be actually that comfortable. Yeah, so these ones were my thoughts on the exterior, interior and the driving experience. So it will be a very fierce competitor to the 911 now. So far is it working? I know the registration figures from Germany. Even the Jaguar F-Type has more registrations than this one's right now, and the 911 6 times the figure. So it's not working yet, but it's a better chance than with the SLS, because the SLS was really in the supercar segment where you couldn't really reach that high registration numbers. This one should be better, and I think it has to work just because of the design. And as soon as more people also will drive it and see, hey, maybe the handling is even better than with the 911. And maybe you are one of the rare people that have driven two of these cars or own maybe one of these cars, and can leave me the comments down there. And if you haven't driven so far, please also comment on the exterior, interior and the driving experience I presented to you. Really looking forward to your comments, because this is really a very interesting car to discuss, and especially also considering all the competitors in the segment. So I hope you enjoyed our tour here today, and I hope also to see you at the next Autogefühl episode with Thomas.